from downtown Detroit, home of WDIV and Click on Detroit, Local 4 News at noon starts now.
A surge of new Chinese coronavirus cases as the 11th person contracts the virus right here in the United States. We'll take a look at what airports are doing to try and help stop the spread. Plus, it is shaping up to be a consequential week in American politics as the Senate impeachment trial wraps up and the first voters will be heard in the 2020 election during the Iowa caucuses. But we do begin here at noon with the impeachment trial. That does stop our show here. I'm Evrod Cassamy. Thank you for joining us. Today, Democratic impeachment managers are making their final case for impeachment, as you just heard.
What you decide on these articles will have lasting implications for the future of the presidency, not only for this president, but for all future presidents. Whether or not the office of the presidency of the United States of America is above the law, that is the question.
President Trump's constitutional crimes, his crimes against the American people and the nation, remain in progress.
Now, after closing arguments, the Senate will hold a final vote on whether to acquit or convict and remove President Trump from office. The final vote will happen at 4 p.m. on Wednesday, but it's expected Trump will be acquitted because a conviction requires 67 votes in the 100-member Senate. That would mean all Democrats and at least 20 Republican senators would need to vote for conviction. But let's take a step back here and look at what's happening in the Senate chamber right now. Susan McGinnis takes us there.
The president's impeachment trial nears its end today. Each side presenting closing arguments, remarks echoing those repeated throughout the process. House managers prosecuting the case not giving up, making a final effort to convince senators to remove the president.
Your duty demands that you convict President Trump.
On Friday, Democrats pushed to allow witnesses and evidence, soundly defeated by Republicans united in their quest to protect the president.
The president will be acquitted in a bipartisan manner.
A few GOP senators concede Democrats did prove their case, but arguing his actions don't warrant removal by Congress.
I think it was wrong. Inappropriate was the way I'd say, improper, crossing the line. And then the only question left is, who decides what to do about that?
Well, who decides what to do about
the people,
that?
The people.
Democrats calling it a cover-up and a tragedy.
He remains unapologetic, unrestrained, and intent on continuing his sham to defraud our elections.
The president on Fox before a Super Bowl audience still declaring his innocence.
I use the word witch hunt, I use the word hoax. I see the hatred, I see the level. They don't care about fairness. They don't care about lying.
Following today's closes, senators who have acted as jurors in this trial will make speeches, which could last right up until voting time Wednesday afternoon, when they cast their final vote on the two articles of impeachment. And despite Republican efforts at making this a quick trial, it will not end in time for the State of the Union address that will be delivered tomorrow by an impeached president still on trial. In Washington, Susan McGinnis, NBC News.
All right, Susan, thank you. Of course, you'll want to stick with us here at Local 4 and on clickondetroit.com as we continue to follow the historic impeachment trial for you. Meanwhile, months of campaigning come to a head tonight for the Democratic presidential candidates as the Iowa caucuses take place. Now, the caucus does not work like a primary election. Citizens gather at precincts to show support for a candidate in the first round of choosing. Now, if a candidate does not get 15% support, that candidate's backers can swing to another candidate for the final tally. Iowa can sort of be a launching pad for a campaign.
We're kind of like a yard sign for the rest of the country. When they see who can win here, it may increase folks' chances of voting for that candidate on Super Tuesday.
Democratic Party leaders in Iowa are expecting a record turnout for tonight's caucuses. The United States Senate will pause in its impeachment trial of President Trump to join the House and the nation to hear the president's State of the Union address tomorrow night. The president is going to be speaking at 9 p.m. on Tuesday, and you'll be able to see it live right here on Local 4. The president is expected to highlight his work on the economy and make the case for his reelection this fall. And after the president speaks, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer will be joining Congresswoman Veronica Escobar from Texas to deliver the Democratic Party's response. The Associated Press reports the high visibility appearance for Governor Whitmer has stirred some speculation that she could be a vice presidential choice for the party's candidate. But the governor, however, has said that she is uninterested. Well, let's turn our attention to the forecast now. After a sunroof open kind of day yesterday, Brandon, meteorologist Brandon Rue is standing by with a look at where things shape up today. 45 in January or February. I'm not mad at it.
We are already exceeding expectations, if you will, with numbers in the middle 40s on their way up another degree or two. You can see some of those high clouds that have been sticking around, and the winds have been coming out of the east. So it is certainly a little cooler than yesterday, but well above average or normal. 45 Metro, 45 Adrian, it's 44 in Ann Arbor without much of a breeze, but again, it is enough to keep the big lakes drawing in some slightly cooler air, staying in those middle 40s with times of high cloudiness, a little bit of filtered sun, and more clouds still to come. We have a weather maker on the way for Tuesday. We'll track it coming up.
Alrighty, Brandon, thank you. An early morning house fire caused considerable damage to a historic home in Pontiac. This mansion here on Ottawa Drive, right near M59 in Orchard Lake, was reportedly the original home of a Pontiac newspaper publishing family. Thankfully, no one was hurt in the fire. We are going to have more on what happened there and the home's history in Pontiac on later editions of Local 4 right here today. And starting today, Detroit's Metro Airport is now one of 11 airports that will play a key role in trying to stop the spread of the coronavirus. Under the new rules from the Department of Homeland Security, U.S. citizens who have traveled to China within the last 2 weeks will be rerouted to one of 11 airports where they're going to have to undergo enhanced health screenings. Detroit Metro Airport is one of those airports. In the meantime, health officials have confirmed the 11th case of the coronavirus in the U.S., and there are now confirmed cases in Massachusetts, Illinois, California, Washington, and Arizona. The outbreak, as you know, has killed more than 360 people in China and infected more than 17,000 people worldwide. Janice Mackey-Freyer has this report from Beijing.
Those boosted travel restrictions are now in effect in the U.S., effectively banning any foreigners if they've been to China. As well, U.S. citizens who have visited Wuhan or even Hubei province will now face a 14-day quarantine period upon returning home. China today called the measures mean, pointing out that the U.S. was the first to pull its staff from the consulate in Wuhan, was the first to roll out stronger measures that made other countries follow suit. Perhaps it's no coincidence that the planes that were supposed to evacuate hundreds of Americans from Wuhan back to the United States have been delayed. People who were notified to show up to the airport are now being told to wait for further information.
We have a handful more flights that will be heading to China to bring Americans back home from Hubei province. The exact timing of those, we're still coordinating with the Chinese government.
Meanwhile, the numbers here continue to edge higher, more than 17,000 confirmed cases, and the first of at least 3 emergency hospitals opening. This one in Wuhan, built literally in days. It will now be staffed by doctors and nurses from the military as the numbers rise and everything is in short supply. Janice Mackey-Freyer, NBC News, Beijing.
And you want to stick with us here at Local 4 and on clickondetroit.com as we continue to track this coronavirus crisis. So to come here on Local 4 News at noon, a gunman opens fire on a Greyhound bus, shooting 6 people. Are investigators any closer to determining a motive? We'll have more on that. Nick?
A whole lot of questions surrounding that toxic green ooze coming from the Madison Heights building. Today, we'll tell you exactly how you can ask some of your questions directly to those in the know.